Welcome to Life in Real Time with Lucia, the podcast where we capture the essence of raw, unfiltered conversations and where we will dive deep into the journey of life. No topic is off limits here, and things can get real, really real. This is your space for open, honest, and sometimes messy discussions about everything that life throws our way. The good, the bad, and the downright chaotic. Some episodes will be unscripted, where anything can happen, and others will be carefully crafted to explore thought-provoking themes. A fair warning, though, that this is rated adult, and yes, that means that the language might get a little colorful at times, but hey, that's life in real time, right? So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and join me on this unpredictable adventure through life's ups and downs, and everything in between. Let's keep it raw, keep it real, and above all, let's keep it honest. I'm Lucia, and this is Life in Real Time. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me again today. Before we begin, I have a quick disclaimer. This episode is based on my personal experiences, observations, and lessons I've learned throughout my healing journey. It is not intended to diagnose anyone or replace professional mental health support. When I talk about narcissistic behaviors, I am speaking about patterns that can occur in relationships and family systems. Every situation is unique, and not everyone who displays certain traits has a personality disorder. My intention today is not to label people or attack anyone. My intention is to share my story, share what I learned, and hopefully get someone who may be struggling to understand what they are experiencing. If this episode brings up difficult emotions for you, please be gentle with yourself and seek support if needed. Welcome back to Life in Real Time with Lucia. Today's episode is a deeply personal one, not because I'm going to tell every detail of my story, but because I'm going to talk about something that pretty much just changed my life forever. Many years ago, I found myself in a relationship that slowly chipped away at my confidence, my sense of reality, my sense of worth, and eventually my sense of self. At the time, I didn't understand what was happening. I just knew that no matter how hard I tried, it was never enough. No matter how much I gave in, the goalpost just kept on moving. No matter how much I loved, there was always another reason why something was supposedly my fault. And somehow, even after betrayals, lies, and affairs, I often found myself carrying the blame. Looking back now, though, I can see what was happening. But when you're living it, it doesn't feel obvious. It feels confusing, it feels exhausting, and sometimes it feels impossible to see clearly. Today, I want to talk about why I wrote my book. Not because I wanted to relive the pain. Actually, it was quite the opposite. For years, I avoided writing it because every time I tried, it would pull me right back into memories I had worked so hard to heal from. I apologize, my cat's in the background. People often assume that when you write a book, it's super exciting. I have to say that parts of it was. But if I'm being honest, writing my book was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Every chapter forced me to revisit experiences that had deeply impacted me. Every memory brought up emotions I thought I had already processed. There were times I would sit down to write and then spend days feeling emotionally drained afterwards, and sometimes it'd run into weeks. There were moments when I just wanted to quit completely. I had moments when I thought, maybe it's better I just leave all of this shit in the past. But there was something inside of me that would just not let go. Because I knew there were people out there experiencing the exact same thing that I had experienced. People questioning themselves every day, people losing confidence in their own judgment, people wondering if they were the problem, people slowly disappearing while trying to make someone else happy. Eventually, I realized this book wasn't about me anymore. It was about helping someone else recognize the signs sooner than I did. It was about helping someone understand that there is a way out. When people hear the word abuse, they often imagine something obvious. But emotional manipulation is often much more subtle. What made my experience so damaging wasn't just one single event. It was the constant confusion, the constant shifting of responsibility, and the constant feeling that reality was somehow being rewritten. Even after affairs, betrayals, I somehow found myself being blamed. Now think about that for a minute. Imagine being hurt by someone and then being convinced that the hurt was somehow your fault. That kind of confusion doesn't just affect your emotions. It affects your trust in yourself. And that's what many people don't understand. The goal isn't always control through force. Sometimes the control comes through confusion, through self-doubt, through making someone question their own reality. And over time, people stop trusting themselves. And then they start asking, maybe I'm just too sensitive, or maybe I'm overreacting, or maybe I'm the problem. And let me tell you, that is a very, very painful place to live. Looking back, there were signs. Not always obvious signs, but there were patterns. An inability to take responsibility, a need to always be right, blame shifting, because that is what they do, emotional manipulation, and a lack of accountability. I apologize. You probably hear my dog in the background. There's also a tendency on their part to dismiss or minimize your feelings while expecting that theirs will always take center stage. But here's what I've learned. These patterns rarely show up all at once. They usually happen gradually. And that's why so many intelligent, loving, capable people find themselves trapped in these situations. Not because they're weak and not because they're naive, but because manipulation is designed to create confusion. There's another side of this conversation that I think is incredibly important, because narcissistic behaviors don't only show up in romantic relationships. Sometimes they show up also in families. Sometimes they show up in the people who raised us. And I know that this can be a very difficult conversation because many people love their parents, of course. And this isn't about blaming anyone. It's about understanding how certain behaviors can affect a child emotionally. Many adults don't realize that some of the struggles they face today began long before their first romantic relationship. They began in childhood. When a child grows up in a home where love feels conditional, where approval must be earned, where emotions are dismissed, where criticism outweighs encouragement, or where everything somehow revolves around the needs of the parent, that child learns to survive emotionally rather than thrive emotionally. And that has consequences. Not because the child is weak, but because the child is adapting. We've all heard of the fight or flight mode. I'm sure you all have. And psychologists do talk about these survival responses. So actually, I learned two of them. I only knew the fight or flight, but now there's also fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And these are natural protective responses that help us survive difficult situations. But when a child grows up in an emotionally unpredictable environment, these responses can become their normal way of functioning. And then what happens? They become adults who are still living in survival mode, always preparing for something to go wrong, always anticipating conflict, always scanning for danger, always trying to keep everyone happy. And many people don't even realize that they're living in the fight or flight mode. They just think that they're anxious or stressed or overwhelmed. But underneath it all is often a nervous system that never truly learned what emotional safety feels like. And that realization can be life-changing, because once you understand that, you stop seeing yourself as broken, and you begin understanding that you adapted to your environment. Another thing I wish more people understood is that many people pleasers are not just simply nice people. Many people pleasers are survivors. They learned early that keeping other people happy helped keep them emotionally safe. So they become experts at reading the room, experts at managing other people's emotions, experts at avoiding conflict, experts at ignoring their own needs, because somewhere deep inside, they learned that if everyone else is okay, maybe I'll be okay too. The problem is that eventually this becomes exhausting, because you spend your entire life taking care of everyone else while abandoning yourself. One of the most important things I learned during my healing journey is that we often recreate what feels familiar. Not because we want pain, not because we enjoy suffering, but because familiarity can feel safe. Someone who grew up walking on eggshells around a parent may find themselves walking on eggshells around a partner. Someone who constantly sought approval from a parent may seek approval from romantic partners. Someone who learned to silence their needs may continue silencing their needs for decades. This isn't weakness. It's conditioning. And awareness is where healing begins. Leaving a relationship is one thing. Healing afterward is another. Because now you have to rebuild trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your intuition, trust in your decisions, trust in your ability to recognize what's healthy and what isn't. And that takes time. For me, healing meant rediscovering my own voice, learning how to trust myself again, learning that not everything was my fault, learning that my feelings mattered, and learning that I deserved relationships where respect, honesty, and accountability existed. I didn't write my book for revenge. I didn't write it to stay stuck in the past. And I certainly did not write it to make money. I wrote it because I know what it feels like to lose yourself. I know what it feels like to question your reality. I know what it feels like to feel trapped. And I also know what it feels like to find your way out. If my story helps one person recognize unhealthy patterns sooner, if it helps one person trust themselves again, and if it helps one person realize they are not crazy and they are not alone, then every difficult page was worth writing. If you're listening today and you're questioning yourself, if you're carrying blame that doesn't belong to you, if you've spent years trying to fix someone who refuses to take responsibility for themselves, if you've forgotten who you are because you've spent so much time trying to become what someone else wanted you to be, I want you to hear this. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not impossible to love. And you are not responsible for saving everyone around you. Sometimes healing begins when we stop trying to rescue others and start rescuing ourselves. Sometimes healing begins when we stop asking, how do I make them understand? And instead ask yourself, what do I need to do to protect my own peace? And most importantly, healing begins when we finally remember who we were before the manipulation convinced us otherwise. I want to thank you for joining me today on Life in Real Time with Lucia. And if my story resonates with you, I hope it reminds you of one thing. No matter how lost you feel right now, there is a way back to yourself. And that journey is worth every step. Thanks for listening.